I'm here today as a founding member of the Good Technology Collective. And the Good Technology Collective was started last year when we noticed that we were having these discussions with friends and families and colleagues about a lot of topics about the implications of machine learning and AI. And somehow we always ended up having the same discussions over and over again, and we noticed everyone is having them right now, everyone is contemplating all these questions, but they're only doing it kind of in their own circles. So academics speak to academics, non-profits to non-profits, businesses to businesses, and governments actually hardly speak to anyone. And that's why we created the GTC, kind of the urge to actually do something about this. And it's composed of a diverse group of people from all these different sectors, and together we hope to actually introduce real tangible actions to do something about these topics. So this brings us to the question, what is good technology? What is good technology in the context of information architecture, which is what we are talking about today? And how do we apply that? So I think for that we just have to look at what happened the last couple of years. We had the information data explosion, so basically we are now at a rate where every 2 years data doubles, and this information overload creates a lot of issues because the entire world is getting digitized. Every interaction we do goes through this information, but at the same time, we as humans cannot process all of that anymore. So that's kind of why people had to start introducing algorithms. I mean, very early, of course, Google is PageRank, but now basically it's everywhere to help us filter that information, kind of just deliver a tiny slice of that, and this tiny slice kind of becomes our interface to the world. And I think what's really interesting about it is that as a user of this technology, I don't understand where the information that I'm getting presented is coming from. For me, it's kind of a black box. And if you look at the public in general, I think everyone will agree that no one really, a layman cannot understand what is actually happening. So who actually knows it? Who designs these algorithms? Who knows what is happening behind the scenes? And of course, these are the engineers and the designers working in the tech ecosystem, working for some of the largest companies in the world, actually in really large teams, as part of a big ecosystem. And all of course striving, we all know the engineering mindset to create the technically best solution and kind of create the perfect product for the user. And then still 2017, especially, was incredibly tumultuous. I mean, we had a lot of positive things, right? Google introduced DeepMind and suddenly solved a problem people thought was insolvable, which was winning in the game of Go. We had huge advances in robotics, IoT, gene technology, even space travel, and they probably all have a huge positive impact on future society. But at the same time, we are feeling a lot of very negative consequences. So I hope this can be read. This is a couple excerpts from the many articles about this last year and this year. And the question is, where is all this negativity coming from? Everyone is talking about fake news these days. I think last year is the first time we actually really felt the impact of filter bubbles. So that was more like an academic topic before. We have algorithms, often inadvertently actually introducing racial or other biases in kind of all areas of our lives now. So it's like e-commerce, entertainment, social networks, law enforcement, even finance and banking. And then we see this radicalization of society because people don't really see each other's communication anymore. At the same time, governments kind of overreaching, kind of jumping on the train, wanting to collect more and more data. And now suddenly we have people warning about the future we only knew from books, which is kind of this false profiling pre-crime situation, which would be pretty insane if it would be actually implemented. But then you look to China and they actually started doing it. So why is that? Why is this happening right now? And why didn't it happen before on such a scale? And to me, the problem is actually pretty clear. Technology, and especially these frontier technologies, are now at a point where they're kind of operating on the edge of society, on the edge of what values and norms we have in society. And as such, of course, they're redefining society, kind of pointing it in a new direction and doing that quite radically. But no one actually thinks about in which direction to point, right? No one gives direction, no one thinks about the ethical implications or the moral implications. There's no compass in tech for that. And if you look at the big tech companies, they don't have any instance for that. No one thinks about these kind of issues or the implications. You know, everyone is just kind of obsessed by this technical challenge, by the competition, by wanting to be first. And if ethics are even, or these kind of topics are even taken into consideration, they're mostly to give it to the lawyers so that they can find a legal framework that makes it all okay again. And this kind of chasing of the next technical feat without thinking about the implication is, in our opinion, creating a lot of the issues we're seeing, and we have to solve that. And we can only solve it by actually introducing this topic into the tech world and making it understandable not only for the public but actually for the engineers and designers working on this. So they have to be educated, and we have to create guidelines and rules to help companies to actually implement that. And if we want to create good technology in the future, in our opinion, that's what we have to do. We have to take this much more into account than we did before, because it's not just the technical change anymore, but it actually has really big implications on society and how we live as humans. So this is something we have been working on. It's like one of our big goals in the GTC. So we only started end of last year, so it's all a bit work in progress, but I wanted to give you some insight on how we think companies should approach these topics. So if you implement ethics in technology as kind of a new pilot to consider next to the technological challenge, it's really important that it's in all project phases. So from the very first idea to specifications, implementation, to kind of supporting the product, these questions have to be taken into account, and they have to kind of also be represented in the documentation. Everyone in the company, from the engineers, designers, project leads, project managers, down to legal and executives, have to be aware of these topics and try to design products that make people's life actually better. And we think what's really important is that companies actually start to introduce company-wide guidelines, kind of incorporating into their existing processes. And one of the big goals that we have is to actually create some kind of codex or a code that is very easy to understand, with maybe 20 rules and simple explanations that everyone can take into account to kind of judge their idea and kind of find out how can I tweak my product to have less impact or a more positive impact. And what are these kind of questions that everyone should ask each other, of course? So I think a very important one that is often overlooked is actually, does this make sense? Does the product, the application that I'm developing actually make sense from the perspective of the user? You know, again, we are all chasing this holy grail of new technology, and we're often completely forgetting the people that are going to use it. Then, for me, the second most important one, are we actually empowering our users or taking responsibility away? I think it's the thing we see with Google. Google tries really hard to make your life better. But by doing that, they just start to make more and more decisions for you. So actually, instead of giving you more possibilities in life, they're narrowing them down more and more and more. And we don't believe that's actually the best way to deal with technology, right? It should be empowering. Technology should always give you more possibilities in life. Next one is, do you offer a choice, right? Do you give the user a choice, some control about how the algorithm, how the information is presented, how it processes your data, and how you want it to be acted upon, right? Do you give them a choice to maybe turn certain recommendations off and present you with a different representation of the data? Just by giving them the choice to make it much more transparent to the user, and also kind of changes your design philosophy quite a bit. Then, of course, we already talked about, are the long-term risks of introducing bias and discrimination. You know, a lot of machine learning algorithms are really, really dumb. I think it's a big problem that actually we're calling AI now. We have children now talking to, you know, Alexa, and they think it's a real person, but in reality it's just a very stupid machine learning algorithm that hasn't really changed in, you know, 10 or 15 years. And what they are very good in is detecting similarities that don't have to be like really related, but they can detect similarities and patterns. Everything else kind of falls off the cliff, right? So now if you today try to introduce a new product on Amazon in a category that is already has a lot of products and a lot of people are buying these existing products, it'll be really, really hard, because even if your product is better, the one which everyone buys will always show up first in the list. And then, also quite interesting, are there more intelligent solutions to the problem? Maybe we really have to go back to the interface in the way the user interacts with it. But for example, I always have a story I kind of like to tell. So imagine, Google already has all data, but not also controls your home, right? There's a building automation space, so that's something that's very dear to us. And you had a very bad day. Happens to everyone. Google saw that from, I don't know, your speech, your communication, your emails. Now you come back home, and Google just changes the light color to a warm, soothing light. Now we have a really big problem, because humans are very easy to manipulate by the environment and things like light, but we don't know in that moment when you sit down on the couch, do I feel better because Google just decided I should feel better, because I came home, because I said hello to my significant other, because I just opened a can of beer? You don't know. And at that problem, at that point, we have a really big problem. And that can be solved, in that example, with intelligent design, right? Of course, you can use machine learning to understand the preferences in terms of lighting and so on of the user, but then why not create a light switch or a way to control light that is as intuitive as our current ones, that still gives you the option to change the color of the light, right? If we could design such an interface, which I think we can, you wouldn't need all that automatic, intelligent, all these smarts from Google, all these stupid algorithms basically, because you would give the power back to you. And at that point in time, it's empowering again. We are still using data, of course. Like, we're not really radically changing the application, but from a user's perspective, it's a huge difference. In terms of information, generally, big question also, are we actually collecting relevant data? Everyone is kind of on this hype, and everyone wants to just collect everything and try to get insights from it. Just by doing some simple analysis on the data, you can often realize that it's completely useless, right? So then why collect it? Maybe it's actually much better to focus on quality data to like figure out which one is really useful, and then instead of having every single data point, maybe it's enough to just have aggregate data or trends, which give you in the end the exact same results, but actually require less processing. Can we find better ways to make large amounts of data navigable? I think that's again a big interface question, right? If we have something like Facebook, for example, can we find ways to make it easy to navigate your entire feed without Facebook selecting 2 or 3 friends and then you will just see everything from them? Can the user understand where recommendations come from? I think that's something that is not really happening right now, but it would really help the public to better understand the tools they're working with. You know, just a bit of transparency. They're saying then, oh yeah, we are showing you this because you looked at these and these things before, and that's why we think it's relevant for you. And that will actually allow you also to tweak it in a much more intuitive way, and to better understand what kind of biases are maybe in the information that is presented to you every day. And then of course generally data should always be information checked for the difference between correlation and causation. Also a problem that is very prevalent right now, which you see, for example, is this false profiling issue, that of course often things are correlated, like the classic example, all terrorists have eaten bread before the act, but that doesn't mean that all bread eaters are terrorists. And we are kind of blindly trusting this very dumb machine learning algorithm to create facts for us, but most of them are actually complete bullshit. So that's basically what we are working on with the council right now. So we have an expert council, I think around 20 members right now. We have university professors, we have actually MDBs in the Deutsche Bundestag, we have entrepreneurs like me, we have really an interesting group of people. Even the guy who does, like the real sex stores would say, like, why? But of course, he has to think a lot about the ethical implications of these kind of products in the future. And that's kind of what we are trying to do, include all different groups of people that are relevant to discuss these kind of issues. So one of the things we're going to do is start a series of events for engineers and designers. So the first one will be in March, it's not announced yet, where we actually kind of start an education initiative where we always have some expert council members and some external guests kind of having a discourse about these topics. And we think that will be really valuable. We are working on the project to bring that out. And then we have, of course, 2 more goals. One of them is actually to educate the public, so that the public can have a discourse about this, because right now everyone is just very confused, so finding easy ways to educate them, especially with a focus on the very young, because for them it's all just this magic thing that never existed differently. They grow up with smartphones, they don't even know what paper is anymore, and we have to make sure that they understand what, for example, a filter bubble is. And then the third goal is to actually work on policy, work with governments, try to steer them in the right direction, give them some insight, so that they can kind of create rules for society so that we end up pointing in the right direction. And to kind of end my talk, I'd like to cite Shimab Palihapitiya, who is former Facebook executive and engineer. He joined very, very early. This is something he said back in December. I feel tremendous guilt. I think in the back, in the deep recesses of our minds, we knew something bad could happen. But I think we defined it, it's not like this. Literally, it's at a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. Right? And I think we all have to make sure that in 10 years, we are not the people saying this about our work.